Hands on the roof of the car. Do it now. Don't make me ask twice.
Now imagine that. You're 17. Your mind is on molecular bonds and scholarship deadlines, not on the texture of your own car's paint under your fingertips. The night air is cool, but the panic is a hot wire in your chest. The description you fit is a simple, devastating one. And the thing the officer feels in your pocket, you know with a sinking certainty that it wasn't there moments ago. This is the moment the world tilts. This is the story of Elijah Ward and the day his future was almost stolen from him by evidence that never existed and a truth that wouldn't stay silent. Elijah Ward was a young man who spoke in equations and saw solutions where others saw problems. His sanctuary wasn't the basketball court, but the cluttered garage-turned-laboratory behind his family's home in the Crestwood suburbs. His current obsession was a deceptively simple project for the statewide innovation fair: passive audio capture via redundant power sources. In essence, a voice-activated recorder so efficient, so stubborn, it could run for weeks on a combination of solar, kinetic, and ambient thermal energy. He'd built it into an old, weathered hardcover book, a biography of Neil deGrasse Tyson, hollowed out and fitted with a sophisticated tiny board. It was a triumph of engineering. To anyone else, it was just a book on his passenger seat. The night it happened was a Tuesday. He was returning from the university library, a late-night haul of reference texts on acoustic physics. The blue lights flashed in his rearview mirror 2 blocks from his house. His heart performed a familiar, dreadful gymnastics routine. Hands at 10 and 2, deep breath. He pulled over. Officers Decker and Hull approached with a practiced predatory swagger. Decker, the older one, had a face like granite. Hull, younger, wore a sneer that seemed permanent. Their flashlight beams danced over Elijah's impeccable interior. No air fresheners, no trinkets, just textbooks and that single nondescript book on the seat.
The stop was a masterpiece of implication. "This car looks a little nice for this neighborhood, son. You in a hurry? Got something to hide?" Elijah answered with polite, precise clarity. He was an honor student at Crestwood High. He was coming from the library. He lived just there. His words seemed to evaporate against their willful disbelief. Then came the command to step out, the pat-down, the theatrical discovery. "Well, look here, Mike," Hall said, his voice dripping with false surprise. He held up a small Ziploc bag of a green, plant-like substance, pinched between his gloved fingers. It had materialized from the region of Elijah's hoodie pocket. "What do we have here?" Elijah's blood turned to ice. "That's not mine. I've never seen that before." The protest sounded feeble, scripted, even to his own ears. He saw the next 2 years of his life unravel. The scholarship to Howard, the research internship, his mother's proud eyes, all replaced by mugshots and court dates and a permanent stain. Decker leaned in, his breath sour with coffee. "Tell it to the judge, kid. We've got you dead to rights, possession with intent. This is a serious street." They cuffed him. The metal was shockingly cold. As they guided him toward the cruiser, Elijah's eyes, wide with a terror that was giving way to a frantic, calculating despair, swept over his own car. They landed on the book, and a circuit in his mind, trained for problem-solving, closed.
Passive audio capture, voice-activated, redundant power sources. The device was on. It had been on since he left the library, triggered by him humming along to the radio. It was listening. It had heard everything. The booking process was a blur of fluorescent lights and impersonal procedure. He used his one phone call to reach his father, Marcus, a structural engineer, with a voice usually like settled gravel, now cracking with fear. "Don't say a word to anyone, Eli, not a word. We're coming." The Ward family attorney, Miss Lydia Pierce, met them at the precinct. She was a woman of formidable stillness.
as Officer Hull presented his smug narrative, the suspicious driving, the plain view contraband, the obvious guilt, Miss Pierce listened, her pen barely moving. Then she asked, "And you subjected him to a full search prior to this discovery?" "For officer safety," Decker grunted. "I see," Miss Pierce said. She turned to Elijah, who sat in a terrifying silence. "Elijah, is there anything at all, that might contradict this account? Any detail you remember?" Elijah looked at his parents, at the naked fear in his mother's face, at the controlled fury in his father's. He looked at the two officers, already writing their report, their victory assured. He thought of the book sitting in his impounded car. A backup of the audio file was automatically encrypted and uploaded to a private cloud server via a spare cell phone battery he'd rigged. All he needed was access. "My science project," he said, his voice quiet but clear. It's an audio recorder. It was running." For the first time, Officer Hull's sneer flickered. "A science project? Nice try, kid." Miss Pierce's eyes sharpened. "What is the nature of this project, Elijah?" "It's a prototype for continuous, low-power audio documentation, housed in a book. It's voice-activated. It would have been active during the stop." The room changed. The air grew thinner. Decker's granite face hardened further. He's making up fairy tales to save his skin. "We'll see," Miss Pierce said, a blade in her tone. She filed an immediate motion to preserve all evidence from the vehicle, specifically citing the defendant's educational project as potential exculpatory material. A skeptical judge, alerted to the unusual claim, ordered the car and its contents sequestered. The next 48 hours were an agony of suspended animation. Elijah was released to his parents, the charges pending, a cloud of assumed guilt hanging over him, at school, in his neighborhood. The whispers were almost audible. "He seemed like such a good kid. You never really know." Then, in Miss Pierce's conference room, they all listened. The audio was crystal clear. The hum of Elijah's engine, the click of his turn signal, the swoosh of tires as he pulled over, the approaching footsteps, then the voices. Officer Decker's gruff commands, Elijah's polite, frightened responses, the sounds of the pat-down, and then not the rustle of something being found, but the distinct crinkling, unzip of a pouch. A pause, then Hull's voice, a low conspiratorial murmur meant for his partner's ears only. "All right, plant this little present. Kid's gonna learn a lesson about driving while black in Crestwood." A sharp intake of breath from Elijah's mother in the conference room. On the recording, Decker's grunt of assent. Then the louder, performative discovery. "Well, look here, Mike." The recording continued, capturing every subsequent lie, every embellishment in their official report, all the way until the car door closed, leaving Elijah's abandoned vehicle in silence, holding the truth in its pages. Miss Pierce didn't smile. She simply placed her palms flat on the table. Got them. The fallout was swift, quiet, and total. Miss Pierce took the recording not to the local prosecutor first, but to the Internal Affairs Division of the County Sheriff's Office and the FBI's Civil Rights Desk. The evidence was too pristine, too damning to ignore or bury. Officers Decker and Hull were placed on administrative leave the same day. Their legal defenses crumbled within weeks. Facing federal civil rights charges and undeniable audio proof, they pled guilty. Their badges were revoked, their pensions forfeited. They became case studies in a mandatory retraining program, their voices, now forever associated with bigotry and corruption, used as an example of what to root out. The charges against Elijah were not just dropped, they were expunged. The university reaffirmed his scholarship. The story, carefully managed by his attorney to protect Elijah's privacy, leaked in broad strokes to the local paper. Faulty evidence leads to officer dismissals. The systemic issue was named, without his photo plastered beside it. Elijah Ward didn't become a viral sensation. He didn't need to. He returned to his garage laboratory. He refined his device. He won the state science fair, not for catching corrupt policemen, but for the elegance of its power source engineering. The real victory was quieter. It was in the way his father's shoulders finally relaxed. It was in the way his mother slept through the night again. It was in the unshakable knowledge, hard-won and terrible, that sometimes the world tries to bury you with a lie. And sometimes, if you're smart enough and your foundation is solid, you can build the very thing that exhumes the truth. The last sound on the recording, after the cops drove away with Elijah, was hours of empty car silence, followed by the gentle chirp of a cricket, a testament to a device that did its job, and a metaphor, perhaps, for a young man who, under pressure, in the darkest night, had simply refused to stop recording his own reality.